What's going on? Welcome to the channel. If you're here, I appreciate you tuning in. Week 1 was filled with a ton of good college football, and I'm ready to dig into it as well as previewing week 2. But when we're talking about week 1, I'm just going to focus on what I had as my matchup of the week, and that was LSU versus Clemson. I had Clemson winning. I thought that this was going to be a game that was heavily focused on the defense, and it was. I just thought that Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, if I had to pick a QB, I'd pick Nuss, but not by much. I thought having that home atmosphere, I actually like the wide receiver room that Klubnik has had at his disposal was better than what LSU, at least as far as proven production. And I thought Clemson was going to pull that game out, and it was very underwhelming from their side just to see the offensive production. Cade, the decisions that he was making. I think from a play calling perspective, you could have some questions there as well. And just being absolutely dominated by the LSU defense. And again, credit to LSU's defense because they were prepared, and then when there was an opportunity to take advantage of a mistake that Clemson made or just absolutely dominate that Clemson offensive line, they went out and they did it. Pat Payton, who was an ex-Florida State, I'm a Florida State guy, but I keep my tabs on the guys that transferred out. He had a great game, and I think when he's motivated, he's an issue. He might not stack up the stat line with sacks, but he's always generating pressure, right place, right time, and he had a great game. Him, Pyburn, the DTs that LSU has also, they were just causing a ton of problems for that Clemson offensive line. And to all the LSU fans that were clowning some of my videos from last week when I was making the prediction, hey, it's well deserved. I take it on the chin. You guys proved me wrong, and props to you guys. You had a top 10 win, top 5. You deserve to be ranked in the top 5. When we look at Texas and Ohio State, the big topic in this game was Arch Manning and Julian Sain, these two young guys who are finally getting the opportunity to start. And I thought it was a great game. I think the one major takeaway from the game is these defenses are elite, and these two teams are going to contend for a national title. Everyone wants to focus on Arch Manning, how much he struggled. Like, that is the toughest task that he could have been asked to do. That is probably the toughest defense he's going to face all year. And I do think that there were some passes that he missed. I'm not the most familiar with football mechanics, but there's a term in baseball that we use that's called short arming. When I saw Arch throw some of these balls that were inaccurate, I thought he kind of short armed them and they're kind of falling short, but then you see him let it loose in the fourth quarter and hit some really beautiful passes. So I think the media's being a bit too hard on him. They did it to themselves. They crowned this kid as the next coming of who, best quarterback to ever play in college, and I think they did it more so because of the last name instead of letting this kid go out and prove himself. And that's not to say that the kid doesn't have talent, can't be the guy to go out and prove that he's one of the best to do it, but judging him just based off that game against Ohio State isn't necessarily the best thing to do. I think he's going to be fine. I think Texas is going to move on, like I said, compete for a national championship. From the Ohio State perspective, I thought Julian Sain, was a bit limited with the play calling, and I think that when he was asked to execute, he did what he managed the game in a way that put his team in a position to succeed. Thought that the play calling was, fit exactly what they needed to do for a first-year starter who's going into that environment. Well, it's his own environment, but playing against a team like Texas, not the easiest thing to mentally prepare for. And he did his job. I think as the year goes on for him as well, that he's going to go out and be a pretty good quarterback, especially when he's got guys in his wide receiver room like Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State deserves to be ranked number 1, no doubt. We look at, what's another game? We looked at Alabama, FSU. I am a Florida State guy, so listen, I was hyped. I was super hyped about Florida State, but I mentioned that on my Florida State channel that this was a combination of two things. Florida State was better than people expected. Alabama was, or is, maybe a bit worse than people expected. A lot of people were hyping them up to be the national championships because you look at their roster on paper and there is a lot of productivity that came back from last year. But you look at their staff, and yes, they have won everywhere, but they've done it in the Pac-12. They've done it in, I don't think it was D2, but FCS. I don't know. They were just at competitive football levels that were just not the SEC or the ACC or the Power 4, to be honest. So it's like, how do they make that transition to the SEC? I thought they had a decent year last year, but you look at them over their last, 6 games or 10 games or 5-5 or whatever it may be. So I think they're hitting a bump on the road and they're trying to figure it out. So as much, I always say, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you can't coach them, if you can't coach him, you're not going to win ball games. I know Kirby Smart is famous for saying that he wins because of the guys he has, but he kind of downplays his coaching as well. That man is a defensive genius, and he knows how to win ball games, not just because of the talent that he has, but because of the smarts that he has in the film room, on the field, and putting his players in a position to succeed. We had Notre Dame and Miami. Miami ended up winning that game by 3, and I thought they looked like the clear better team. I thought that game should have been, a two touchdown difference at the end of it, and it became close towards the end. I think there was a bit of clock management issues that Cristobal had, but Miami looks really good, and I expect them to be competing for a ACC title possibly and a playoff spot this year as well. This looked like a team that, from all aspects, defensively, offensively, they're dominant against a good Notre Dame team, and I know that Notre Dame, I see this a lot on social media. My Notre Dame fans are saying, "Oh, you feel so good about beating a redshirt freshman starting in this first game on the road only by 3 points." I get that the score didn't look great, but they dominated. Miami dominated Notre Dame, and if they could clean a few things up, especially from a clock management perspective, you look at the rest of their schedule, and they should be in a good spot to go out and compete for one of those 12 spots. And from a Notre Dame perspective, their defense it's supposed to be what Marcus Freeman's teams are known for, and I didn't see anything that really stood out to me that is an indicator of how his past Notre Dame teams or even his Cincinnati defenses have looked. Like, the defensive line couldn't get anything going. The DB, anything that was contested, the DBs were getting beat. They just, I don't know, they didn't really go out there and compete. I did like CJ Carr, though, in the way that he was able to create plays throughout that year. And I think they'll end up being fine, but there was a few questions that I had for Notre Dame, especially on that defensive side, that I thought were uncharacteristic for, Freeman coach teams. And that's about it for week 1. Those were the best games in my opinion, and it was a great way to start the college football season. And looking at week 2, nothing really stands out to me on paper. I think Oklahoma and Michigan is going to be a great game. They're both going into this game with brand new quarterbacks. One of them has a true freshman. One of them has, the kid that just transferred in from Washington State. I think Mateer can be competing for the Heisman this year. I saw a little bit of Underwood's game against, I think it was New Mexico State. He could sling it. It looks like he's bringing a passing concept to Michigan that they did not have last year. I think this is going to be a very competitive game, but it's hard to judge these games on the most important position on the field, which is the quarterback position. There's no, proven track record of what they've done in that system with that team. So kind of sticking away from that one. The one game that I would focus on might be a little bit of a surprise, but it is going to be Arizona State, Mississippi State. Arizona State's going on the road to Miss State, and I fully expect Arizona State to win this game. They have a lot of returning talent from the team that made the playoffs last year. Again, especially the most important position on the field, which is their quarterback. And I do expect them to win this game, but I will say it is a road game. I believe his name is Levy, the head coach for Miss State. He has a great offensive mind. He came from UCF. I've looked up his history, his track record as an offensive coordinator. That man knows how to score points. And when he has his quarterback's not injured, right? His quarterback's healthy this year. He gets to use the guy that he wants. I saw them play a little bit. I saw a bit of the highlights from, that first week 1 game who they played. Nobody, but sometimes you can just see, sometimes things just stick out on paper. And listen, don't be surprised if Miss State throws some punches in this game. This should be a fun one. I would advise everybody to tune into this game, as well as, what's another one? UCLA, UNLV, I believe, is another game that's going to be good. Yeah, we got a few good games on the slate, but Arizona State, Miss State is my game for the week. Expect Arizona State to win. Close. I'm going to go with a close one. I don't think it's going to be anything dominant, but I do expect them to go on the road and win that game with all those cowbells ringing. And yeah, I'll check in next week. If I'll have Miss State fans in my comments clowning me for that take as well. But like I said, my predictions, I have no problem making them. If they're wrong, they're wrong. I'll take it in a chance. I love the back and forth banter. If you tuned in, I appreciate you. Hit me with the subscribe, hit me with the like if you don't mind. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next week. Let's have another great week of college football.